There's a Pokemon that was so violent that the god of Pokemon himself had no choice but to banish it to an entire different dimension. And that Pokemon is none other than Giratina. And in this video we're going to be seeing if Giratina can take over the realm of PokeRogue and defeat Eternatus. We kick off our journey by going against this kid in his first Pokemon battle, but we throw out a Giratina. Next up is our rival fight against Ivy, and she leads off with her Oshawott. This isn't going to be a problem in the future because Samurott doesn't really have anything effective against me, and a Wattrel certainly doesn't either. So Ivy's probably not going to be too much of a threat for the rest of this run. At the end of wave 12, I actually got the map item which would let us keep out of those fairy caves, until wave 26 where I got to choose to go against the mightiest foe, Crasher Wake. Now this wouldn't count for our official gym battle, but he would give us a really good item if we were able to defeat him. So I set up with a couple of Dragon Dances, boosting our attack and speed 2+2, before eventually going for a Spectral Thief, which one-shot the Panpour. Spectral Thief is an egg move on Giratina that allows me to steal the opponent's stat buffs before I attack. So for instance, after this turn, this Quagsire is going to get a boost to his defense. On the next turn I use Spectral Thief, and I steal Quagsire's defense buff before attacking it. So basically, no matter what buffs the Pokemon has that I'm facing, I'll be able to steal it from them and then attack, making it to where I'm only hitting them for neutral or increased damage. But on top of that, Spectral Thief is also a base 90 power move, making it one of my strongest moves that I have access to, especially on Giratina. But just like that, Crasher Wake was left with one more Pokemon being Buizel, and with a single Charge Beam, I was able to one-shot it and get my reward, which actually just ended up being the Shell Bell. Ironically enough, on wave 30 we'd be having a rematch against Crasher Wake, as apparently he didn't get enough the first time. I start this battle off with going with the Charge Beam, which does a little bit over half of Prinpluck's HP, so I just go for another one and do get the special attack bonus after the turn. That special attack bonus allows me to one-shot the Quagsire, taking it down in just a single hit, as Weasel comes in and makes the exact same fate. And with that, we defeated Crasher Wake for the second time. Now you get the opportunity to see exactly what the map item does. It allows me to pick between 3 different biomes, and I could just pick whichever one is most favorable for me. On wave 35, we find out that we're going up against Team Skull this run, and honestly their leaders aren't too tough, being Plumeria and Guzma. After defeating this boss Quagsire on wave 40, we actually found the GTS system, but we don't have any extra Pokemon to trade, so I just decided to send in my Leopard Berry to get a new item. The item I ended up receiving was just a nugget though. A few waves later, it was time to fight our rival Ivy for the 3rd time this run. She led off with our fully evolved team using Samurott, and I decided to go for a Dragon Dance against this thing since I predicted it didn't have any moves that would really do too much damage. It went with a Focus Energy to boost its crit chance before going for an Aerial Ace which did a whopping 16 damage. Seeing this, I just decided to go for one more Dragon Dance, and another Spectral Thief was all that it took to knock out Samurott. After Samurott went down, she decided to send in her Killer Wattrel, which of course got one-shot by Spectral Thief, especially with that super low defense. She did actually have a couple more Pokemon now, one being Kleavor. Kleavor just really isn't that great of a Pokemon, so it got one-tapped, and then Armarouge came in next, and of course was weak to Spectral Thief, getting obliterated in just one hit. And with that, we took down Ivy for the 3rd time, and we'd be moving on to the next waves. On wave 59, it was time to hatch our egg, but this time it was not a shiny, so Zygarde still holds as the victor as the best shiny Pokemon that I've hatched an egg, but I digress. It is now time to go against Marnie on wave 60 for our next gym badge. She led off with Toxicroak before switching into her Grimmsnarl, which I ended up hitting with a Spectral Thief. Grimmsnarl was going to be a very big threat, as that Dark and Fairy typing was a complete counter to Giratina. So it went for a Dark Pulse and took roughly a 1/3 of my HP, as I decided to go for another Charge Beam. With one more Dark Pulse it did raise its defense, but I just went for a Spectral Thief to steal its defense boost and knock it out on the same turn. This is why Spectral Thief is such a great move for Giratina, and I honestly don't know if it'd be able to solo PokeRogue without it. I go for a Dragon Breath on the next turn, and after taking a crunch for more Morpeko, I raised nearly every single stat using all of my berries. I decided to go for just another Dragon Breath, which was more than enough to take down the Morpeko, leaving Marnie with only a couple more Pokemon. Lightbird came in, but also got obliterated by some Dragon Breath, as Toxicroak came back out and met the exact same fate, giving us our victory against Marnie for our next gym badge. While in the Wasteland, we ran into some Team Skull grunts, which the first one was super easy to take out, but the second wouldn't be the same, as Gengar wasn't too much of a threat, as it would go down to one Spectral Thief, but Krookodile was the real issue. Krookodile used the move Foul Play, which does damage based off of how much attack I have on Giratina. So if I were to go for a single Dragon Dance, Krookodile would for sure one-shot me. but luckily for me, I actually managed to paralyze it with a Dragon Breath, and 2 of them was enough to take it out. So this left it pretty easy for me to just hit the Arbok for some decent damage, doing a little bit over half HP, before going for another one, taking down the Arbok in just a couple of turns. But if I had played this wrong here, Giratina would for sure go down to Crocodile's Foul Play, as it's super effective. On wave 66, we would have our first fight against Team Skull admin Plumeria and her team of poison types. I decided to go for a Charge Beam, which did luckily raise my special attack on the same turn, and it did the same on the second, putting me at +2 special attack in just 2 turns. When the Alolan Muck came in, it really wasn't too much of an issue, as at this point I was just spamming some Charge Beams, and even though it poisoned me, I still managed to get out of it because of my Lumberry. Going for a Dragon Breath was more than enough to take it out, and a Spectral Thief on the next turn would one-shot the Gengar. This left Plumeria with not too many more options, as Salazzle came in next, but obviously was not really too much for Giratina to handle. I did manage to get it into the yellow with a single Spectral Thief, before a second one did take it out. To be honest with you, I don't know why I wasn't using my special attacking moves, as I am now +2 special attack, but I might have just kinda got lost in the sauce with this battle. Another Spectral Thief would take Scolipede down a little bit below half HP, and my Lumberry would heal me from my poisoning once again. Another Spectral Thief was enough to take down the Scolipede, leaving Plumeria with one more Pokemon, and that ended up being Toxapex. Toxapex went down in just a couple of turns, as Charge Beam was super effective. Unfortunately, it did manage to poison me for the 3rd time this battle though, and that was going to be lingering after the wave. On the bright side, taking down this Toxapex meant that we took down Plumeria, and we were able to go through the wastelands, getting jumped by a gang of Delibird, and then making another deal for some completely legal substance with this really shady guy with a PokeRogue. On wave 90, we will be facing off against the next gym leader, Gordy. He led off with his Hisuian Avalugg, which has 0 special defense, so a single Aura Sphere was all that it took to one-shot that behemoth. Next up was Tyranitar, and obviously it is infamous for being 4 times weak to fighting type moves, but it did live in Aura Sphere, but it did not live 2 of them. So with that, the pseudo-legendary went down, and then Gordy decided to send out his Shuckle. Shuckle is one of those Pokemon that doesn't seem all that menacing, but with some special items and berries, this Shuckle could really be a problem, especially if it had any setup moves like Toxic or something like that. Unfortunately for him though, he decided to go for a Shell Smash, which of course I'd be using Spectral Thief to steal all of the buffs from Shell Smash and then use it against the Shuckle, hitting it critically and knocking it out on the same turn. Next up was Colossal, and I did have Aura Sphere that would be super effective, but it still only took it down to just barely below half HP. I am now 1 HP due to the Sandstorm, but because of my Shell Bell and hitting the Colossal with the Aura Sphere, I got just enough health to survive one more turn of Sandstorm. If Aura Sphere did not one-shot the Stonjourner on that turn, the run would have ended there, but instead I'm moving on, beating Gordy. On wave 95, we'd be going into our next rival fight against Ivy for about the 5th time. This time, she decided to switch out Samurott on turn 1, sending in her King Gambit, but with a single Aura Sphere, I was able to one-shot it because it is quad effective. I decided to skip Destiny Bond, as if I die, I just lose the run, and I one-shot the Kilowattrel with a Dragon Claw. Kleavor did manage to survive just barely, but it did just survive barely without doing any damage back, so she decided to switch it out and just sacrifice her Armorage for some reason. Not like Armorage is going to do much anyways, but still. Samurott came in and terrestrialized into the water typing before hitting me for 17 damage with a Terra boosted Aqua Jet. This allowed me to just go for a Dragon Claw into a Special Thief, stealing the boosted stats from Samurott eating the berries and knocking it out on the same turn. Kleavor came back in, but it was at 13 HP, so of course it went down, and we defeated Ivy for the 5th time. We are officially at the halfway point, hitting wave 100, and we're going against Alakazam. I managed to one-shot it, so I think that deserves a like, and subscribe if you haven't already. I'm sorry for that shameless plug. After defeating Plumeria for the 3rd time, it was time to go up against the boss Guzma. He led off with his Yanmega, which obviously wasn't going to be too much of a threat, as despite its ability being really good in speed boost, its attack stat just wasn't really great enough, especially not against Giratina's crazy good defense. So I set up a few Dragon Dances, getting the +3 in both my attack and speed, before going for a Spectral Thief, which would boost me up to max speed and one-shot the Yanmega all in the same turn. This would allow me to outspeed everything Guzma would send out, and a single Spectral Thief would be more than enough to take out most of his Pokemon. So, of course, Scizor was down in just one turn, as Golisopod comes in next. A Dragon Claw wasn't enough to one-shot it, but could it live 2? Absolutely not. So, with a second Dragon Claw, Golisopod does go down, and that being the ace of the team meant that we were probably going to obliterate the rest of Guzma's squad with ease. Vikavolt was the next victim as Araquanid followed suit, going down in just a single Dragon Claw, with Pinsor of course meeting the exact same fate. Now with Guzma defeated, this was super important because I find that on wave 115 you get an item that allows any Pokemon in your party to change its forms if it has an alternate form available. So we turned into Giratina Origin form. Just a couple waves later, I ended up encountering this random event that I've never seen before, and with the 3 fire tornadoes, I assumed that it was going to be something super cool like Groudon or maybe like Moltres, which wouldn't be as cool, but turns out the source of it was just a couple of Volcaronas doing fiery dance. Putting my disappointment aside, on wave 120 it was time to go against the next gym leader Flannery and her team of fire types. Leading off against Darmanitan, I decided to set up a couple of Dragon Dances as it just went for a few Rock Slides. Now of course Rock Slide isn't going to do too much damage to me, but Flare Blitz certainly did, and at this point I was forced to attack. A single Dragon Claw was more than enough to take down the Darmanitan as Houndoom came in next. It also of course went down to just one Dragon Claw, as at this point we're +3 in our attack stat. Magcargo's Flame Body did burn us though, but luckily for us we're +3 in attack, so even with the half damage from burn, we're still going to be dishing out more than enough to one-shot most Pokemon. After getting a Lepa Berry to restore our Dragon Claw, we then hit the Ninetales that somehow survived a single hit, and then rose its defense on the next turn. I wasn't too interested in going for Spectral Thief here, so I just went for another Dragon Claw, securing the kill. Torkoal came in next and actually had enough HP to live 3 Dragon Claws, so if it was using any move other than Eruption and Iron Defense, we might have been in trouble, but that just wasn't the case, and so with a single Spectral Thief, we were able to take down the Torkoal and successfully beat Flannery, giving us our next gym badge. After refusing to pay off for this Binacle, it was time to fight Ivy once again. This time she led off with her Samurott and stayed in after terrassalizing. She went for a Shell Side Arm as I went for a Dragon Claw into a Dragon Dance, which did actually end up pivoting her into her King Gambit. Of course, I didn't take any chances and went for an Aura Sphere here, one-shotting it with ease. My worry with King Gambit is that if it lands a single Night Slash and it crits, I might go down in one hit. Luckily for me though, one Dragon Claw was all that it took to take down her shiny Rayquaza, especially with that critical hit. I ended up landing 2 back-to-back critical hits with Dragon Claw, allowing me to one-shot both Rayquaza and Kleavor, and then Kilowattrel on the next turn, and I tried to keep the ball rolling, but Dragon Claw just wasn't enough to one-shot the Armarouge. But a second Dragon Claw did get the job done, and at this point Ivy's team is just getting decimated, leaving her with only her half HP Samurott that of course went down in a single Dragon Claw. On wave 150, it was time to go against Gym Leader Juan for our very next gym badge. He led off with his Wug Trio, and I just went for a Dragon Dance, and that's when he decided to go for a Shell Smash. This was music to my ears though, as I decided to go for Spectral Thief, stealing all of the buffs Wug Trio got from using Shell Smash and then using it against him to one-shot him. The speed getting dropped actually didn't matter, as I did go for Dragon Dance on turn 1, so Greninja stood no chance when it switched in, getting one-shot by Dragon Claw. And now at this point, there was basically nothing that he can send in that would live a Dragon Claw, including this Crawdont that got body bagged on the same turn. Walrein was definitely scary, as it did manage to live a Dragon Claw, but it missed its attack, so we just got to kill it for free anyways. After Walrein went down, Juan sent in Kingdra and terrassalized, but that did not save it from getting one-shot by Dragon Claw, despite it not being super effective. Whiscash came in next and of course was not bulky enough to live a Dragon Claw, so we got our next gym badge. On wave 165, it was time to go against Guzma for the final time. He led off with his Mega Galizapod, which was a now Bug Steel type instead of Bug Water. This actually mattered because Iron Head did significant amounts of damage to me, so I decided to go for a Spectral Thief to try to chip it down to half HP. This is exactly what happened, so with another Spectral Thief, I was actually able to get rid of the Behemoth, which was perfect because if I didn't take it down on that turn, I was going to lose the run right there and then. But I didn't, and so when Scizor came in to hit me with a Mighty Cleave, I decided to just go for a Dragon Dance, boosting my speed and attack one more time before knocking it out with a Spectral Thief. At this point, if I didn't sweep the rest of his team, the odds of me winning this run were not looking good, because I do have the Reviver Seed, but I would prefer to not use it. But unfortunately, after getting hit by Gliscor's Fly, I did have to use my Reviver Seed. This did allow me to go for a Spectral Thief on the next turn though, and get Gliscor down to just 1 HP, before dodging an Earthquake with my Levitate ability. It ate a berry, and I decided to go for a Dragon Dance here, as I predicted I'd be able to outspeed it, which actually worked in my favor because it went for Swords Dance. So with a Special Thief, I was able to take both its plus defense and its +2 in attack all in one turn before knocking it out. This was essential to knocking out Buzzwole on the next turn, because if it hit me with another Darkest Lariat, I would have gone down here. But due to me being +3 in my attack stat, I was able to take down Buzzwole in just 2 hits, leaving Guzma with only its weakest Pokemon left, being a Araquanid, and one more that was obviously gonna be a Circuitry. Assuming you guys didn't see that one coming, but it still got one shot, so it didn't matter all that much, and we took out Guzma for the last time. After having some fun on the Wobbuffet-O-Matic, and I ended up knocking it out so I didn't get a reward, it was time to fight against the last gym leader of this run, being Marlin. Lapras was definitely going to be a threat, at least I thought so before it used Freeze Dry, hitting me for practically no damage. A second Freeze Dry did slightly more, but still not enough for me to be concerned, but after seeing its attack and speed go up, I decided to go for a Special Thief, stealing those boosted stats for myself. With Lapras out the way, Mantine came in but got obliterated on the switch-in, getting one-shot by Dragon Claw. Jellicent got the same fate despite terrestrializing into a pure water type, and then Caracosta came in and actually managed to live one with its incredible defense stat. But the next turn it didn't have so much luck, as it did go down to a single Dragon Claw, as Wailord came in and followed suit, getting one shot immediately. This left Marlon with only Blastoise, but not even it could withstand a Dragon Claw, and we got our final gym badge of the run. The first member of the Elite Four we'd be facing off against was none other than the Ghost-type leader Chantal. She led off with her Cofagrigus, as I decided to go for a Dragon Dance, and after taking the Astral Barrage for not much damage, I decided to just go for a Spectral Thief, getting Cofagrigus out of the way. This allowed me to one-shot it, as Chantal decided to send in Frostlass on the very next turn. Another Spectral Thief was all that it took to get rid of Frostlass, which was going to be a serious threat, especially if it managed to land a Blizzard. Jellicent came in next, but of course got one-shot by Spectral Thief, and it was at this point that I was convinced that Giratina was going to one-shot any Pokemon Chantal threw out. Gourgeist came in on the next turn, but it couldn't live a single Spectral Thief, so the Destiny Bond threat was removed. Next up was her Boss Chandelure, and despite having 2 HP bars, it also got one-shot by Spectral Thief, leaving her with only 1 Pokemon left, being Golurk, and it did terrestrialize into the Ghost type, but that probably did more harm than good, as it also got one shot, giving us our first Elite Four victory. Next up was Elite Four Marshall and his team of fighting types. Now, I really didn't think this would be too much of a problem, but Throw did have Ice Punch, but it still didn't do too much damage. So with a Dragon Claw, I saw that I wasn't going to be able to one-shot it, and after getting frozen, I went for a Spectral Thief to steal that attack bonus that Throw got and take it out on the same turn to avoid any further damage from Ice Punch. Next up was Conkeldurr, and I decided to go for a Dragon Claw, which did get it down to half HP. He hit me with an Ice Hammer, which was a bit scary as it took me down into the yellow, but with another Dragon Claw, I managed to take down the Conkeldurr. Mienshao came in next and terrestrialized into the fighting type, but that wasn't going to mean all that much, as I completely negate any fighting type attack with my Ghost typing. Blaziken also got one shot along with Emboar, and after taking down 2 firefighting starters, he was left with just Breloom, which of course got one shot by Dragon Claw, giving us our second Elite Four victory. The next Elite Four member we'd be facing off against was none other than Grimsley and his team of Dark types. Now this was certainly not great for us, as Dark type was super effective against us, as Spectral Thief wouldn't be doing much damage to any returning Dark types. King Gambit did come in next, and with its 2 HP bars, this could certainly be a threat if it wasn't quad weak to Aura Sphere. So with a single Aura Sphere, we managed to take down his ace, as Crocodile came in next and met the exact same fate, going down to just a single Aura Sphere. At this point, I'm pretty sure that I'll be able to one-shot anything on his team, as Greninja comes in and gets obliterated by a single Dragon Claw, despite it not being super effective. Zoroark came in and got hit with an Aura Sphere, which managed to take it out in one hit, leaving Grimsley with only his last Pokemon, being a Scrafty. So with another Aura Sphere, I actually took it down to the red, as he hit me with a Crunch for not all that much damage. So with one more Aura Sphere, I knew that it would be enough, but instead I actually decided to go for a Spectral Thief, which honestly put me in a lot more jeopardy than I needed to be. So after this, I learned from my mistake and just went with a simple Dragon Claw, taking it out on the next turn, giving us the next victory against our Elite Four member. The last member of the Elite Four was none other than the Psychic type leader Caitlyn, and she led off with her move Sharna. Now, this was certainly not going to be any type of threat, as it only hit me for 38 damage with a secret power, so I decided to just boost up twice with some Dragon Dances before one-shotting it with a Dragon Claw, healing up nearly to full HP. Hisuian Braviary came in next, but it still wasn't enough to live a single Dragon Claw, as it also got one-shot. Meowstic met the exact same fate, and at this point it was all but over for Caitlin's team, as even a Terrasilize or Uniqueless was not enough to live a Dragon Claw. So Gallade of course met the same fate, leaving her with only one more Pokemon, being Gothitelle. Now with its 2 HP bars, it did actually manage to live a single hit, but despite dropping my attack harshly, it still got one shot on the next turn by another Dragon Claw. I would now be facing off against the champion Alder for the first time in my PokeRogue career, so I decided to set up a Dragon Dance as it is yet to fail me, and this turned out to be the good move as a single Dragon Claw knocked out the Braviary, leading him to send in his Zekrom. Now of course I went for a Dragon Claw on this turn too, as if I allowed Zekrom to hit me I might have gotten one shot, but I one shot him first, leading into a Bug Terrasilize Volcarona. I'm not too sure why it would Terrasilize Volcarona of all Pokemon, but I digress. Next up, after Volcarona went down, was Mega Scolipede, and it actually managed to live a single Dragon Claw before switching into Reuniqueless, tanking another Dragon Claw. One more Dragon Claw was of course enough to take down Reuniqueless, but it decided to switch into Keldeo instead, so another Dragon Claw was enough to take down the Keldeo, and now Alder was left with a bunch of low HP Pokemon, which got cleaned up real nicely by Giratina's Dragon Claws, giving me my first ever victory against the champion Alder. It was now time for the final rival fight against Ivy, and of course she led off with her Terrasilize Samurott. I decided to go with a Dragon Tantrum on turn 1, and after Hydro Pump did literally no damage, I decided I was going to beef up my Giratina to the max, especially so I'd be able to take down Rayquaza in just a single hit. So after 4 Dragon Dances, I decided that should be enough, but after not taking it down in a single Dragon Dance despite being plus 4, I decided I'm just going to max out my stats, as I went for 2 more Dragon Dances. At this point I'm plus 6 in both my attack and speed stat, and I even got some special defense and special attack from my berries, and with another Dragon Claw, Samurott went down. So now, no matter what Ivy sent out, it was going to get one shot, as King Gambit got obliterated by an Aura Sphere, forcing her to switch into her shiny Mega Rayquaza, which of course got one shot by a Dragon Claw. Now with Rayquaza out the way, there was literally nothing on her team that had any chance of taking down Giratina, and it was especially not going to be Kleavor. So Kleavor got body bagged by a Dragon Claw, as Wattrel made the exact same fate, leaving her with only Armor Rouge, which of course also got one shot by Dragon Claw, giving us our final rival victory. It was now time for the final battle against Eternatus, and my plan for this was to beef up Giratina as much as possible before eventually being forced to attack. Eternatus went for a Cosmic Power here, which allowed me to go for another Dragon Dance, as it went for Sludge Bomb. Sludge Bomb did basically no damage, so I decided to keep Dragon Dancing, as Flamethrower did the same thing. Another Sludge Bomb hit for not a lot of damage, but I was kinda concerned I was in range of Eternabeam, so I went for a Dragon Claw. This forced Eternatus into its Eternax form, and at this point I decided to go for Spectral Thief to steal all the buffs it got from eating its berries and switching forms. This raised my stats significantly, and every single time I would hit Eternatus from this point forward, it would gain another stat bonus. So I decided to Terrasilize into the Ghost type and actually go for one more Dragon Dance just to boost my attack a little bit more and dodge some damage from a Dynamax Cannon. Another Dragon Dance would get my attack up to plus 6, so at this point I'm doing the most damage possible, which still only allowed me to take down 1 HP bar at a time. Now this was definitely a little bit scary, as if Eternatus stole my Shell Bells, I probably would lose this fight. And as it's banning Dynamax Cannons, if I didn't Terrasilize into the Ghost type, this battle would have been over a long time ago. But I was in range of one more hit with a Spectral Thief, and that's exactly what I did to take down Eternatus for the final time, confirming that Giratina is in fact strong enough to take down all 200 waves of PokeRogue all by itself. If you guys enjoyed the video, please make sure to hit that like button, smash that subscribe button, as all the support really does mean so much to me, and it supports the channel tremendously as we're growing this community rapidly, and I cannot thank you guys enough. So if you're looking forward to more PokeRogue videos, and I have a little raw mag video being planned and produced right now, so if you're looking forward to that, make sure you hit that bell as well, and I hope to see you guys in the next one. Peace.